The action here, the soldier fires.
Yes, he's falling.
In here, a soldier falls forward. Like pay no attention to the red because that doesn't mean that's where bullets are going in.
No, but I can see the
That's
helmet
neither
here.
here nor there because the little flicks of red are as far as I'm willing to go. In showing blood and horror of that sort, because that does not work. But what I did do with this was a very, very simple thing. And I think when you first saw it, you said to me, but why is that so strangely mounted? And I pointed out, yes, I pointed out the reason for that was that I want the whole image to drop. I didn't want to paint an illustration of somebody falling. It doesn't work. You can't do it. So I just let the whole image drop down below the level of that one. I think that does have some consequence, some effect. Well, that pair I did, and they were, compared with the other ones, relatively straightforward. I was able to do it because I was able to work on the blacks and whites, which I know very well. And I think it works okay, don't you? They're calmer in a certain way. They don't have quite the struggle with them, but that some of these have got. But I think they're very effective, and I think when and if we can get this whole display of work on a wall like that, properly arranged, you'll see the effect and consequences of those two. Now, there's the third one, which is something too that I can remember from my own experience in the war. Because what happens when man goes to pieces? It become, how shall I say, almost idiotic. The man who is suffering so much that becomes almost an idiot, like that. And that's all I've tried to do in that one. Now that painting has been worked many, many times over. Look, let me show you something. Keep your camera going for a moment, Eric, but look at the back of this. Look at the holes in it. Can you see any of that? There's a hole full of holes at the back. It's scraped, it's done. Don't mind if you can't. But Margrete can. Eh?
Yes, yes.
You can see it right up against the light. You can see holes in the back of it, and I don't know what else. A bit stuck over.
Yeah.
So it goes. But no matter. That was that was actually an image which took a very, very lot of work. It looks crude and simple, but it wasn't. It was not. What would happen? I would be working on the darks, and then I would put in this lights here, and they wouldn't come right. So I put in the lights. I go back over the lights, say, oh, get rid of all the lights, get rid of this light, so much as you would call it light at all, but this image, this suggestion of modulation, of bigger, I got rid of all that. And then the moment I got rid of it, I hear myself say, good, now put it back. So back it goes again. So I'm scraping and scrubbing on that with a rough old brush. And little by little, as always will happen, if you've only got the willingness to go on against yourself, is that the image will itself shape its own reality. Then after a time I just stop, and I don't know what's there. Maybe a little bit later on, the same day or same evening or another day, I look at it and say, of course it works. How would I have known that? Yeah.
Well, this is the chest region, isn't it?
Yes,
where the heart is.
Yes, it is. It is so, Margrete. There are things that people could find in that which would be even now to me not clear. But there are values in it which sometimes when I look at them, often maybe in the middle of the night, I drink coffee, smoke a cigarette, and I look at them, and then they speak to me in quite a different way.
Yeah. No, I was thinking because this is where you work the hardest. Where there's a hole, the hole goes right through.
Yes, oh yes, it's
the
quite
feeling
right.
region.
It does here. I mean, this up here, which looks like a gaping mouth, is nothing but a hole with a piece of paper stuck on the back of it. But you see, it works. See, with painting like that, what you don't anticipate is in fact right. It's actually working for you, but you don't see it. That's only a hole. It is not only a hole. It's even much more than that. And I've come little by little to read the impulses of the work to me, quite aside from the fact that my impulse is toward the work.
There's a lot of colour actually in that.
There actually is much more colour there. I'm glad you see that, because these appear to be completely monochrome or like palette scrapings, and if people want to say they're palette scrapings, I say they probably are palette scrapings. but the coloration is there. I use coloration throughout in the tonal values of things. Okay, well, I got this far with them, and I've done this, the heads, and I've done these standing figures. There's this one down here. Do you want to put this up or not, Margaret? You know best.
What about that one?
No, it's the child, because after all, many women and children get caught up in these things. Now, you can, I don't know how good or bad it is. I just don't plain know. But what I kept thinking once upon, yes, it's all right, soldiers fight, and in a small way, at least they're able to shoot back at one another. But in between that, the children, the civilian population were caught, and they suffered hell. You know, they were simply pushed out when the Germans wanted a place, and no doubt the Russians also, if they wanted to get their soldiers warm, and they came upon a house, however poor it might have been, they just told the people to get out. Get out in the snow and die. It was of no importance to us. And another very strange thing, though, Stalingrad was bombed so extensively and shelled so extensively, it was reduced literally to a heap of rubble. Now, tens of thousands of people died in that. And the first major assault on Stalingrad was made by Richthofen. Does that name signify? Richthofen, the man who had connections with the First World War. I don't think it's the same man, but the same family, Richthofen. Being the man he was, just said, go straight in, send in the Luftwaffe, and blot out Stalingrad. What about the people? People? Just blot out Stalingrad. So they bombed it extensively. They killed tens of thousands of citizens. Tens of thousands of innocent people were buried in that rockland mess of Stalingrad, in that freezing and horrible conditions. And yet the astonishing thing was that when the Germans were finally pushed back out of Stalingrad, many tens of thousands of people came back out of the gutters and hellholes they'd been living in and existing in for the whole duration of the battle. I kept thinking, once again, perhaps a little bit sentimental, but on the other hand, perhaps not, of the children. The ones who suffer the worst, because who can say what's happening? They can't explain it. Nothing can be told about it. So there was that child's image. All right, well, fine. Pause it here again. And we go back. 2. We appear to be lacking one, but it may be in the next room. I better go and find it. Eric, can you kill the camera a moment or two? While I just go and find out. There's one painting that doesn't seem to be here. What about this one? I came back again to the major early design, which is the massive figures, or darks if you wish, across the surface like this. And I spent quite a lot of time on this one. I think if you look at it, it's not too difficult. Margaret, what do you see?
Well, I see a mass of figures kind of here, and then there's clearly one individual soldier.
Yes, right.
At the end.
Yes, that's right. What I wanted to do with this one was to give a very thick, dark action, in which what I see, or what finally came out, was that to the left there's a soldier who fires out of the picture area, and here on the right hand side the man works the bolt of his rifle. And here I'm a bit lost because descriptions of this kind are not really very helpful. You have to look at the way in which all that has been brought about, the manner in which it's all been brought about, the way in which each thing is lodged, so that the helmet of the figure on the left and the helmet of the figure on the right work together. But look, it's difficult for me to describe this work without going into such refinements that it would be not helpful. What's your impression? Can I ask you for impressions about them?
Well, the other, because this is a mass of soldiers, you said.
Well, there are two
apart from the one individual.
Yes, there are two.
And
yes, these are them. These are the action in mass.
Yes, because the first ones we looked at, then again you had the mass of soldiers without any individuals.
Without any individual
and
detail.
then came the head.
Yes, then the heads, which I wanted to work on next to give some sense of detail to myself.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's the mass and the individual.
And the individual,
but not quite as individualized as
yes, that's quite
face.
right. Exactly. They mustn't be too individualized. I had to suppress a lot of detail about that because what one instinctively tries to do, you see, is to suggest it more clearly. But that is not. That will not work. So, and here you're right, quite right. The mass, which begins in mass and coarse brushwork, begins to develop towards images, and we break off to show the portraits, as you said, and the figures, the figures like that. And I come back again to the major theme.
Yeah, because they're meant to be seen in a series, aren't they?
Oh yes, yes. Normally I would take all these. The order we're seeing them in is approximately the order in which they were painted, but the order in which they would be hanged would probably be quite different because until we saw them on the wall.
Because when you have the individual there, you're sort of pulled much more into the painting in an emotional way, because now you've been face to face with the soldier. It's not just a mass of people.
Yes, right. Mm-hmm. Right. It's in a way almost a change of mood, because when you're looking at these, you are, as it were, standing much further back from the whole thing. You're seeing a block of dark and a greyish white around, and the impact is much more immediate. And it doesn't allow too much in the way of interpretation. As you say, with the head and the face, you're always emotionally involved. One always is with the face. It's a problem I have. How do you keep down the emotion, or at least make the emotion work from within? But with these, I come back again to the major theme, or, if you like, to the way they began, is the way in which they begin to develop towards the conclusion.